But I want to start today by asking, does anyone here know or remember who Carl Sagan was? Jim, put him up there for us, please. There he is. We know this guy? Oh, some of us do. This is Carl Sagan. He was a scientist, but he was also the host and producer of a TV show called Cosmos, a science TV show. And Carl Sagan was called the world's first mainstream media super scientist because a lot of people knew him from his work in media. You know, if you know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, well, he was the Neil deGrasse Tyson of his day. If you don't know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, forget I said anything about him. But it's Carl Sagan. I remember watching his Cosmos videos back in science way back in the day when I was in high school. I can still hear his voice teaching me what Google is and Googleplex. You thought it was just a search engine. Does anyone here know what a Google is? Google is a number. It's a 1 with 100 zeros after it. And if you think that's a big number, a Googleplex, Carl Sagan taught me, is a 1 with a Google zeros after it. It's an astronomical figure. But these are the type of things that Carl Sagan would talk about as he would talk about the cosmos in his TV show. He was a scientist who shared his ideas and his knowledge with many people on TV across the years. And he was also an atheist, someone who doesn't believe in the existence of God. And as I thought about Carl Sagan being an atheist this week, I kind of realized, wow, how dark and depressing and hopeless life is for someone who doesn't believe and trust in God. And that idea kind of came forward when I read a quote from Carl Sagan that he made once as he was looking at a picture of Earth taken from outer space and put it up there for us, Jim. Carl Sagan said, "Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark, and our obscurity and all this vastness, there's no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves." How depressing is that? I mean, there's no hope there. He's got no hope. There's nothing special about our planet or us as people. And there's nothing beyond ourselves to trust in. And he says, there's no hint. There's not even a hint that anything else is out there that's going to help us. He says there's no hint. I think it's sad that Carl Sagan spent his whole life looking to the cosmos, looking to the heavens, and somehow missed the fact that the heavens themselves are the hint. The hint that there's something more there. The hint that there is a creator, that there is a God. You know, Carl Sagan somehow missed that. And sadly, a lot of people, they follow him. They agree with them. And they look at the sky and they say, see, look, that proves there's no God. Or it doesn't tell us anything about a God. Carl Sagan was a very intelligent man. But in his perspective, this intelligent man was unreasonable. Because his perspective is unreasonable. I mean, he has his own ideas about what looking to the cosmos, what looking to the heavens tells him. But the Bible, God's Word, tells us something different. The Bible gives us a different perspective, a hope-filled perspective. Jim, please show us Psalm 19, verses 1 and 2. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge." It says, you see, the cosmos, the heavens, they are the hint. The cosmos, the heavens, declare God's glory every day, every night. It means day after day, night after day. It means it never stops. They're constantly speaking the glory of God to mankind. Everything in the skies proclaim the work of God in his creation. And in doing so, they reveal knowledge, it says. We have knowledge. We know a little bit of something about God, who he is, what he's about. Jim, show us this picture. Picture of the heavens. It's glorious. And they declare God. They declare his goodness, his vastness, his greatness. How vast is God? Well, in their book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. That's the name of the book. Frank Turek and Norman Geisler, they point out that as far as we can estimate in our galaxy, that's just the Milky Way galaxy. We know there are other galaxies out there, but just in our galaxy alone, there are maybe about 100 billion stars. That's billion with a B, 9 zeros after a 1. And the average distance between each of these 100 billion stars is just a measly 30 trillion miles. 30 trillion, that's a 30 with 12 zeros after it. And to give us some perspective about how far this is, they say, imagine a space shuttle. You know, our space shuttles, when they're up in orbit, they travel at about 5 miles per second, which by human standards is extremely fast. But he's saying if you could get in a space shuttle like that and continue traveling at 5 miles per second from our sun to the next sun to another star, and you did that, well, it would take you just 201,450 years to travel that 30 trillion miles. And then to put that into perspective, they point out if you had gotten in that space shuttle in the days of Christ, well, that means by now, traveling at 5 miles per second, you'd be 1/100th of your way there. I mean, these huge numbers. And that's just the distance from one star to the next, let alone from one star to 100 billion stars. They estimate that our galaxy is 100,000 light years, across. That's a big distance. It's actually, you can't get your head around it. And that's how many stars and how far apart they are. And that's just in the Milky Way galaxy. You account for other galaxies. How many stars are there in the universe? We don't know. We estimate as many stars that are in the universe as grains of sand on all the beaches in all the world. And at 5 miles per second, it will take you over 200,000 years just to get from the first grain of sand to the second. I mean, the universe is awesome. The heavens are awesome as they declare God's work. And in fact, you get these astronomical figures, and yet Isaiah tells us it's nothing to God. Put it up here, Jim, please. Isaiah 40:12 says, "Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, or with the breadth of his hand marked off the heavens?" These mind-boggling facts about how big the universe is, God just measures it with his hand. It's just a sweep of his hand. There it is. I mean, it's amazing. So you can look up to the heavens, and you can think, oh, geez, we're all alone here. Or you can be reasonable and look to the skies and consider, listen to the message the heavens are actually telling you. That God created it all for his pleasure and all for ours. I mean, the truth is, you don't even have to look at the heavens to see creation telling us this narrative and declaring God's glory. I mean, right here on our green earth, we can see things up close that declare how great God is. Jim, show us. I think of the Grand Canyon, right? Oh, I have a dream of one day going to the Grand Canyon. Unfortunately, I'm the only one in my family who has this dream. So I don't know if I'll ever get there. But I have this dream of just going and standing maybe at a place like this and just looking at this and just being awed by how great God is to create something like this. This isn't even the largest canyon in the world, but it's spectacular here. Let me tell you how spectacular this creation is that God made. Grand Canyon, 277 miles long. From the North Rim Visitor Center that we have there to the South Rim Visitor Center, that's about 200 miles, and it only takes you about 4 hours to drive that distance. The Grand Canyon is so big it takes us 4 hours to drive along it. At its widest point, the canyon is 18 miles wide. That's incredible. At its narrowest, it's still 4 miles wide. I mean, that's the narrowest it gets. So it's long, it's wide, and it's deep. It's over 6,000 feet down. It's over a mile down into the ground, the Grand Canyon. Beyond its size, there's just amazing things that happen there. The Grand Canyon has its own weather systems down in the canyon because the change in height and elevation has a drastic impact on temperature and precipitation. So you can be at one place within the canyon and you can be experiencing weather, and you can be somewhere else in the canyon and having a completely different weather experience because it changes so much, and it's not just the weather. A visitor can go in the Grand Canyon and experience completely different ecosystems from one spot to the next. It's like its own world in there. God created this. He created for him and for us. We can look at the Grand Canyon and say, there's God. There he is. See, creation gives us all sorts of knowledge about our Creator. How great is our God that he created that for us? God's creation, right on this earth even, is full of wonders that point to God, that tell us about God. That we as humans, even with all our sophisticated science, we can't explain it away. We don't know about it. Around here, we like to think we know a little bit something about monarch butterflies. Show us, Jim. Because we see them every summer, don't we? Some of us, if you're like me, you can remember being back in elementary school and going out and gathering the monarch caterpillars and putting them in an aquarium with some milkweed or something and waiting for them to hang upside down and spin their chrysalis. Not a cocoon, but a chrysalis, right? And you wait for them to emerge as these beautiful monarch butterflies. Anybody else here experience this in school at all? Yeah, you see, so, yeah, we do this. We know something about them. But here's the amazing thing. What we might not know is that monarch butterflies, they migrate. When the weather starts to get colder, they migrate south to places in Southern California and Mexico. They travel 2,500 miles to do it. Sometimes it takes them 2 months to get there. That's amazing in and of itself. But get this, they migrate not only to the same area, but the same exact tree. Kind of, but not exactly. Because, well, the butterflies that are migrating, they're going to the same trees, but they haven't been there before. Because each year there are 4 generations of monarch butterflies. The first 3 generations they live only about 2 months. The 4th generation lives 6 to 8 months, so explain that, you know. But they live to 6 to 8 months, and those are the ones that are making the long trip back to the same trees that their great-grandparents had visited. Now scientists have no explanation for this. Like how these butterflies, generations later, know how to go to the same tree. Our scientific explanation for this is, it's instinct. Okay, but that leaves one very big, glaring question, doesn't it? What or who created these migratory animals with such incredible instinct? Where did instinct come from? We can't explain it. A reasonable answer is that there's a designer, there's a creator, there is a God. And his creation is showing him off to all of mankind. Because of things like this in creation, there is no reason for any human to fail to understand that there is a God and to understand a little bit about him. In fact, that's what the Word of God tells us. Show us, Jim, please. Romans chapter 1, verse 20. The Apostle Paul writes, "Since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse." God's telling us here, look, I haven't left you hanging here. I haven't hidden myself from you. He says, my own invisible qualities are shown off to you through creation and the things that I made. God says, you can see my eternal power, my divine nature. You see it when you look all around you in nature. It's there, and we can clearly see it, and we have clearly seen it, and we have understood it since the beginning, since the creation of the world. So Paul writes, there's no excuse for not knowing about God or understanding that he exists. He says there's no excuse. Those are his words, not mine. The actual original language means you've got no defense. So there's no defense, for actions of humans, for the lack of faith in a designer or a creator of everything they see. They got no defense for that. The argument that design within creation implies a designer, it's not an argument people can't accept. It's an argument they won't accept. And in doing so, they're out without defense because it's unreasonable. Because you see it all around you. There's no excuse for looking up in the night sky and saying, gee, we're all alone. God's presence is clearly seen there. Any reasonable person acknowledges that. You have to deliberately choose to exist in unbelief, not to see it. So many people choose to live in unbelief without even knowing they're doing it, but they are doing it. And they work very hard at it. Trust me, when I'm dealing with these young people every week over here, they work very hard at living in their unbelief. You got to choose. The truth is that God put his stamp of authenticity all over his creation. We can look at creation and know God and know about God because in a way we can look at creation and see God himself. He shows himself off there. We're without excuse. As reasonable people, we either choose to believe the evidence, we choose to believe God, or we do not. It's our choice. But creation attests that God exists. For millennia, humankind knew this. It's only been in the past several hundred years when we've become so advanced, so evolved, so enlightened that we've been unable to see what's right in front of us. See, when we're reasonable, we see how great God is to have created everything around us. How great our God is to reveal himself to us, to draw us near to him and all that he has created. God's there. He's here. He's nearer than you think. You see the evidence of him in creation everywhere you look. Unless you're unreasonable. Many people around us in this world would have us be unreasonable and deny God's existence, but take faith by looking up into the night sky, by looking at God's creation all around you, and knowing, seeing, hearing what it is declaring to you about our great God. You will see God very clearly there. You know, we're coming in the season of fall, finally, right? The weather's finally turned. But the season of fall, every year, just puts on a wonderful display of stuff about our God. People come from all over the United States to look at the beautiful show God's creation puts on. They got to travel, but we're right here, right? So we know it's beautiful. You know, on his blog, Seeing Creation, Chuck Summers writes about the beauty of God that we see in the fall foliage. And he points out once more that the vivid pigments that cause the color in all the leaves, they're actually there all along. They're just overshadowed by the dark green shading of the chlorophyll that fills the leaves. But as summer turns into fall and the chlorophyll's not needed anymore, it kind of filters out of the leaves. And so now you can see all those other vibrant colors. They're there. And Summers writes, in nature, colors are typically there for a purpose. For example, bright colors in a bird will help attract a mate. The colors of flowers, likewise, draw in pollinators. The beautiful colors of fall, however, don't appear to serve a purpose. They're just beautiful. They're just beautiful. Maybe for the purpose of showing off God. Every year, you know, some people, they have to travel thousands of miles to see it, but we're right here, so don't miss it. As you go through this season, as you go through any season, be sure to stop and to see and to hear what creation is declaring about our great God all around you. And then stop and reflect on just how great our God is, that he has created it all for his enjoyment and for ours. And then stop and thank him for using it to reveal himself to you. Thank God that you can know him in and through his creation. And thank God that he draws you closer to him through the wonder that he has created all around you. All for his glory. Let's pray.